He almost rejected her application, until he read one line that stopped his heart. "Already married to you." And in that moment, his past came crashing back. The envelope was the last one on his desk, creased at the edges, slightly smudged, like it had traveled a long, uncertain road just to get there. He almost didn't open it. After hours of reviewing perfect resumes and rehearsed ambitions, this one felt different. And when he finally unfolded the paper and reached the bottom, his breath caught in his chest. Because in the additional notes section, instead of achievements or references, someone had written in simple, steady handwriting, "Already married to you. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what it means to be human, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the smallest actions carry the biggest meaning." He leaned back in his chair, the noise of the office fading into silence. The city outside the glass walls buzzed with life, but inside, time had frozen. His name was Arman, a man known for discipline, control, and an almost clinical detachment from anything emotional. Years of building his company from nothing had taught him one thing: feelings were distractions. And yet, in that moment, his hands trembled. The handwriting was unmistakable. He hadn't seen it in nearly 8 years, but memory has a way of preserving what the heart refuses to forget. Her name was Sarah. 8 years ago, she had walked out of his life without a goodbye that made sense, leaving behind only a silence that echoed louder than any explanation. Back then, Arman had been a very different man. Hopeful, naive, and deeply in love with a woman who believed in dreams more than reality. They had met in a small cafe on a rainy afternoon. She had laughed too loudly, talked too much, and carried a kind of warmth that made strangers feel like old friends. He, on the other hand, had been reserved, careful with his words, cautious with his emotions. But somehow, they had balanced each other. Sarah used to say that he thought too much and felt too little, and she would tease him endlessly about it. He used to say that she felt too much and thought too little, and she would just smile like it was the best compliment in the world. They had planned a future, small, simple, filled with things that didn't require wealth or status, just time, trust, and togetherness. And then one day she was gone. No dramatic fight, no betrayal, just a letter that didn't explain enough, and a void that never truly closed. Arman had buried himself in work after that. He built walls so high that nothing could reach him, not pain, not love, not even memories. At least that's what he had convinced himself, until now. He looked back at the resume. It wasn't impressive by corporate standards. No elite degrees, no glamorous experience. Just a steady record of small jobs, gaps that hinted at struggles, and a quiet persistence that spoke louder than any achievement. And then there was that note, "Already married to you." It didn't make sense. It shouldn't have made sense. But something deep inside him stirred, a feeling he had long denied. He pressed the intercom and asked HR to call her in. Minutes felt like hours. His mind raced through possibilities, questions, fears he didn't know he still carried. When the door finally opened, he didn't look up immediately. He wasn't ready. But when he did, the world shifted. She stood there, older, quieter, but undeniably the same. The spark in her eyes had softened, replaced by something deeper, something shaped by time and hardship. Her hair was tied back simply, her clothes modest, her presence unassuming. But it was her, Sarah. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them was heavy with everything left unsaid. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She just stood there, holding herself together in a way that told him she had learned how to survive without leaning on anyone. Arman felt something crack inside him, a wall, a shield, something he had relied on for years. He wanted answers. He wanted explanations. But more than anything, he wanted to understand why she had written those words. The interview that followed was unlike any he had ever conducted. She spoke calmly, answering questions with honesty rather than perfection. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't even acknowledge their past directly. But her voice carried something he couldn't ignore, a quiet strength. He noticed the small details, the way her hands trembled slightly when she thought no one was looking, the faint tiredness in her eyes, the resilience in her posture. This wasn't the carefree girl he once knew. This was someone who had fought battles he knew nothing about. When he finally asked about the note, the room fell silent. She looked at him, then really looked at him for the first time since she walked in, and in that gaze there was no drama, no pleading, just truth. She explained that years ago, before she left, they had signed a simple piece of paper, not legally binding, not official, just a promise. A joke, really. They had written their names on it and called it their marriage contract, something to laugh about when life got hard. To him it had been a moment. To her it had meant everything. When she left, she had no choice. Her father had fallen seriously ill, and the burden of survival had fallen entirely on her shoulders. She had tried to reach out, but circumstances, distance, and pride had created a gap too wide to bridge. She had thought he moved on. So she did what she had to do, worked, struggled, endured. And now, years later, when she saw the job opening, she didn't apply because she expected anything. She applied because she needed a chance. The note wasn't a claim, it was a memory, a reminder to herself that once, in a different life, she had been loved without conditions. Armand listened, every word settling into the spaces he had kept empty for so long. He realized then that the story he had told himself all these years, that she had left without caring, was incomplete. Pain has a way of rewriting truth, and now, sitting across from her, he felt the weight of everything he never understood. The interview ended quietly. But something had changed. Over the next few days, he couldn't focus on anything else. Her presence had stirred emotions he thought were gone forever. He reviewed her application again and again, not as a CEO, but as someone trying to see beyond the paper. And what he saw wasn't weakness, it was resilience. He made a decision that surprised even himself. He hired her, not out of pity, not out of nostalgia, but because she deserved a chance. Working together wasn't easy at first. The past lingered in every interaction, every silence. But slowly, something began to shift. They started talking, not about what was lost, but about what remained. Trust didn't return overnight, neither did love, but respect grew, understanding deepened, and in the quiet moments between deadlines and meetings, they began to rediscover pieces of who they used to be. Not as the same people, but as better versions of themselves. Sarah proved herself in ways no resume could capture. Her dedication, her honesty, her ability to bring warmth into even the coldest spaces. She became an invaluable part of the company. But more importantly, she became someone Armand could finally see clearly. Not through the lens of the past, but as she was now. Strong, independent, unbreakable. And one evening, as the office emptied and the city lights flickered to life, Armand found himself holding that old memory again. Not the pain, but the promise. He realized that some connections don't fade, they just wait for the right moment to be understood. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of second chances and the beauty of reconnecting with what truly matters, take a moment to engage with this video. Your support means more than you know. And before we reach the end, here's a special request. Comment, "Second chances exist," if you believe that life sometimes gives us another opportunity to fix what was once broken, because sometimes the last candidate is the one who was always meant to stay. And sometimes the words written in the smallest corner of a page hold the biggest truths of all.